Question 1. It evokes a sympathetic response. A child is vulnerable and helpless against the armed soldiers. It shows the cruelty and senselessness of this death. The child didn't even live long enough to realize his or her potential. Question 2. The contradiction or dichotomy. It leaves the reader pondering, how can the child be both dead and not dead? And further here, the speaker introduces the idea that the child is a symbol of innocence, hope, and resistance, and none of the lives lost will ever be forgotten, as they are everywhere else. They'll be remembered in history, in the struggle for freedom. Question 3. The child is unhappy with the parents' submissive attitude. They didn't fight hard enough. And he's a synecdoche of the youth. A synecdoche is when a part is mentioned, but the whole is represented. And he'll now take up the fight, literally, and the child seeks a quick and possibly violent solution to the end of apartheid as he, quote-unquote, lifts his fists, whereas the protest of his parents would have been more peaceful when compared to previous generations who are shouting, Africa, Africa, and they campaigned against apartheid in this way. Question 4, the image of the mother refers to the pain and suffering. They scream, and their screams of anguish are heard far and wide. Question 5. The frequent use of denials and negative sentences emphasizes just how frequently these events occurred during those brutal years in the fight for freedom. And the reader understands that there are innocent victims in all these places. And the denials are indicative of officialdom. And they come across as blatant lies. Question 6. The child playing in the sun creates a carefree mood without the violence of bullets and rifles and batons. Treks and travels, however, suggest freedom and that there are no more restrictions and confinements of the past laws. The image of a giant show that the child is now grown and has embraced his or her potential. Question 7. The concluding image is particularly poignant because it reflects a child who did not want any part of the violence that he grew up in, but instead wanted to follow innocent pursuits. He simply wanted opportunity to become an independent adult with no restrictions on where he could go. And the passbook, it implies restrictions and oppressions. Question 8. The speaker, Jonker, remained desperately hopeful of a better future. The last line implies a future without restrictions. And the repetition of not dead implies hope and optimism. The child is repeated 10 times in the poem, the anaphora, and it emphasizes the age and innocence of the child. The effect is to highlight the number of innocent people who were killed at the hands of the apartheid regime in South Africa.